See you guys. That was a good video.
Yeah, I like it.
Lots of energy.
It's going to be long and weird, but I think there's tons of interesting... What is up, you guys? Matt McKeever here with...
Michael Rosehart.
And welcome to another episode of Mike and Matt on Fire. And so today we're going to just dive into Money or Time.com had an article on 19 secrets that millionaires don't tell you or don't brag about. So we figured... I think we have a good enough position to kind of share our thoughts on whether these hold true, whether they're simply truisms, and whether they're really a secret or obvious. But anyways, let's dive into it. So,
secret time.
They always spend less than they earn. In fact, their mantra is, over the long run, you're better off if you strive to be anonymously rich rather than deceptively poor. So the idea there, I think, is kind of that stealth wealth, right?
Yeah.
And the bigger point here,
Millionaire next door kind of thing.
Yeah. And so the bigger point here is he always spends less than he earns. So you talk about always growing the gap, right? And so I think that, I don't think that that's a secret, right? That shouldn't be a secret that that's how you get wealth.
If you're not doing that, you will never be wealthy.
Right?
Like,
it's really that simple. Otherwise, like, you're essentially counting on speculation on something, right? Like, you're counting on a windfall from a lottery, or you're counting on your cryptocurrency going to the moon, right? And those are things that you can't actively control, where you can always control your income and your expenses and grow that gap. So definitely agree with that one.
The second point's cool too, about being anonymously rich and then rather than deceptively poor. We see a lot of those people in our community that drive like those nice Mercedes, they have the big house on the hill, this and that, and the high flashy suit.
Yes.
And a lot of them are just struggling. It's just all a wall that's fake, and
it's a facade.
They're stressed, they're in debt, so definitely if you're in that position or you want that lifestyle, maybe think twice. This is a millionaire secret, I think, that holds true, holds water. Yeah,
absolutely. And so the second one is he knows that patience is a virtue. The odds are you won't become a millionaire overnight. If you're like him, your wealth will accumulate gradually by diligently saving your money over multiple decades. So yeah, I think patience is a virtue. We might quibble on whether you have to take decades to grow your net wealth, but it definitely does take time, right? Like, I don't know how often I get DMs these days of people that are like, I have no money and I want to be rich in a year. Go. And it's like, dude, no, I can't make you a millionaire in a year if you have no money and no experience or skill sets.
Patience is a virtue. 100% agree. Almost no one became a millionaire overnight, and if they did, it doesn't feel as good as earning it over a long period of time.
100%. And because a lot of this, I think we could apply this to kind of the marshmallow test, right?
Oh, I don't know the marshmallow test.
Don't you? I could swear we talked about it.
Maybe I do.
So the marshmallow test is the idea of like, if you have like a 3-year-old and you give them one marshmallow now and tell them,
delayed gratification. Yeah, no, okay.
I was gonna say, I thought we talked about it before.
Sorry, the buzzword
framing,
didn't get it.
So the whole idea there is though that like if you take like a toddler and you give them a marshmallow and tell them if they don't eat that marshmallow in the next say 5 minutes, you'll give them a second marshmallow, and whether they can delay that gratification. And sadly, a lot of adults in our current westernized society, I don't think can pass that marshmallow test, right? It's why everyone finances everything. It's why everyone looks at payments rather than total cost. And I think that that's a great way. If you're constantly just thinking about, can I make this payment? Can I add this payment onto my monthly burden? It's a sign that you're probably not passing the marshmallow test.
Pass that marshmallow test, right? You want to be a millionaire.
So number 3 then is when you go to his modest 3-bed, 2-bath house, you're going to be drinking Folgers instead of Starbucks, and if you need a lift, well, you're going to get a ride in his 10-year-old economy sedan. And if you think that makes him cheap, ask him if he cares. He doesn't. I think this rings very true for both of us, right?
I like that.
Dr. Stanley in the Millionaire Next Door documented that the average millionaire never owns a new car, because it's just such a bad financial proposition, right? I'm sure someone will jump in the comments and give me one extreme anecdotal piece of evidence that disproves it, but like the exception doesn't prove the rule. There's a reason that a lot of the successful members that show up to London on Fire drive like shitty sedans that are 5 to 10 years old and like all these different things.
On that topic of, I'm selling the SUV and I'm going down to a Ford Focus again.
Oh yeah, nice.
The car that I had before, so You heard it here. It's gonna happen.
And you guys also heard it here on like a video 2 days ago that I'm dropping my car completely. So
I did. I haven't had a chance to watch that one.
Yeah, we haven't really chatted about it, but I just kind of broke out. Like when I look at it, it's just an A to B tool, and like if I consider that I'm spending $200 to $300 a month on my car, right, between insurance, maintenance, gas, and like a little bit of amortization, that essentially means I could do between 10 and 15 round trips on Uber. And it's like, that's actually works out to, you know, potentially, you know, 1 to 2 to even 3 round trips a week. And like, how often do I need to leave my house by vehicle, right?
You're a big enough draw. You can draw people to your house.
No, it really is a big part, right? We're shooting this in my house. I make everyone come to my house, and
we used to go to my place, and now I come here. So he's a big draw.
Yeah, and so part of the reason for that simply is, it's not that like, well, it is that I'm lazy, but it's more that I'm trying to be really efficient with my time. So like, not that you would have realized it, but this morning at 9 a.m. like Peter and Jeff were here, and so we had a meeting until about 12:30, and then I have like a half-hour gap, and then Michael shows up, and then at 5 o'clock I need to run and get supplies because then I'm going to go do my cryptocurrency meetup, right? And so I really just like to be efficient with my time these days. It's even actually a good example of being efficient with your time is you called me on your drive over here just so we could kind of pre-discuss the video so that we'd be up to speed so we wouldn't waste a bunch of time like just kind of catching up and talking about the broad strokes. So
I think in the same way as he does. That should be a tip. Is maybe it's not even on there. Be efficient with your time. Be efficient with your resources. Your time is one of your most valuable resources.
Yeah, I think it's the most finite resource you're ever going to have, right? Because like
one life to live, baby.
Right? Yeah. So let's get into number 4 then. He pays off his credit cards in full every month. He's smart enough to understand that if he can't afford to pay cash for something, then he can't afford it. I really hope that's not a secret that he's paying off his credit card every month.
If you're carrying a balance, like go borrow from someone at less than 22% and pay that off. Like someone in your network's gonna lend you money, even if it's your parents. Like,
and like
do it.
That is a great point. There is a lot of opportunities to have less expensive debt, and I think far too often people they get emotionally tied up into it or their ego's involved, and so they don't even want to reach out for help or look at their alternatives, and that's just a failure a recipe for failure, in my opinion.
100% agree with that. You know, I mean, debt consolidation is so.
Yes, yeah.
Someone will lend you if you're like, would you lend me 10 grand to pay off, you know, this credit card? I'm going to cancel it.
Yeah.
Most people in your family or your friends network would probably be in a position to help you, or a couple of them could come together to help you. And I mean, it depends on your history. If you're a bad risk, you don't want to lend you any money.
But this actually also kind of ties into a previous video we shot. That's what a lot of this P2P lending is, right? It's people trying to consolidate their debt, and they're showing, okay, I'm going to pay off these different pieces of debt, and now because I'm able to get a lower interest rate through you guys, then, you know.
Once the credit card's paid off, your credit score is going to jump up. You know what I mean? Start making some payments on debt. Your credit goes up. You can then debt consolidate a bank or a credit union.
Exactly,
so it's a snowball, right? It just starts building, and that's one of the secrets too. Is most millionaires know that you have to start pushing the snowball. Because if you don't start pushing it, it's not going to roll on the hill.
Yeah, 100% agree. So number 5, we might have to break this into multiple videos.
We love to talk.
He realized early on that money does not buy happiness. If you're looking for nirvana, you need to focus on attaining financial freedom. Yeah, 100% agree, right? Like, money can't buy happiness. You know, lots of studies show that there is a sweet spot, you know, but again, I think that sweet spot's even overstated, right? Often we see like it's thrown around $70,000 or $80,000 for a family is the sweet spot. But I think that's if they're consuming in a typical manner, right? Like I think you and Elise are able to essentially create a similar lifestyle for a fraction of the cost, right? And I think that's where conscious consumption really ties into all this.
Maximize that utility each dollar, right? At least 2 to 3 times if you can.
Yeah. So number 6, he never forgets that financial freedom is a state of mind that comes from being debt-free. Best of all, it can be attained regardless of your income level.
The first part of that, I hate that. Debt-free? Come on. How many millionaires or billionaires are debt-free?
Yeah. And so I think that the key there is that people usually throw around the word debt too haphazardly. I think what they probably mean is consumer debt or bad debt, right? Debt that's not being used to earn you income is bad debt. Debt that's being used to earn you greater income than what the debt cost you to service it, I would argue is good debt because you're growing that spread, you're growing that gap between your your responsibilities or obligations and what you're bringing in as income. So
a rich man knows that it's cheaper to use someone else's money or the bank's money than his own money.
Yeah, 100% agree. And the other part is, I do think that financial independence is a big mind game, right? Like, you can have more than enough money and still not be financially independent simply because you're so stressed out and you're so you're so caught up in your own headspace. And at the same time, I think that there's people that aren't technically financially independent that can be financially free, right? Like, they know that, you know what, in the next 50 years of life I bet I'll make a couple bucks. And so as long as I don't lose everything I got today and I can make a couple bucks in the future, I'll be fine. And I think that to me is what a lot of this mindset's about too. Because both of us are prime examples. We substantially grew our net worth after we quit our job, once we became financially free or financially independent. So, yeah.
Gains are made after you go to the gym.
There you go.
I don't know why I said that. Stupid shit.
7. He knows that getting a second job not only increases the size of your bank account quicker, but it also keeps you busy. And being busy makes it difficult to spend what you already have. I think this is actually an interesting thing, because like, I'm like kind of using this in a different means.
You're talking side hustle or?
Well, side hustles or even just being busy, right? Like working on your real estate or whatever. But I know for myself, I'm way less likely to indulge in, say, self-destructive habits, whether that, say, be spending money I shouldn't be, or over-imbibing in substances, or whatever the case is, if I'm just busy, right? Like, if I just don't have time for bad habits, it's hard for your bad habits to have time in your life. And I think the same goes for spending, right? Like, if you're constantly busy because you're out hiking, or you're out bicycling, or you're doing a side hustle, it's way harder to spend money, right? Because you just can't. And same with, like, don't have like the Amazon app on your phone if you're a shopaholic, right? Like, just make it a few steps in order for you to actually have to pull the trigger on those purchases, right? Like, make it so that Amazon doesn't remember your credit card. So every single time you have to type in the credit card, just the act of you having to get up, find your wallet, find that credit card, type it in, that's going to give you a moment to breathe, a moment to think. And again, it's kind of keeping yourself busy, so it's harder to do that.
Those good habits, right? It's the habitudes, it's attitudes and habits.
Yes. 100%.
That's what makes a millionaire.
Habitudes. I've never heard that. That's good.
I did a video on that, a daily video journal of like the 7 habitudes.
Oh, did you?
Like,
okay.
Millionaire, and like it got like 10 people viewing it.
It's probably because you released it probably at 1 a.m.
1:32 in the morning.
Yeah.
You guessed it.
Yeah.
I'm a nighthawk. What can I say?
All right. So let's move on to number 8. He understands that money is like a toddler. It is incapable of managing itself. After all, you can't expect your money to grow and mature as it should without some form of credible money management. Yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah,
how many stories do we hear about in with, you know, actors or, you know, sports professionals that have all this money and then end up broke because their money manager was stealing or siphoning it, or bought, you know, what the most ridiculous thing you could imagine.
Started churning, so they're doing unnecessary sales basically to generate commissions for themselves and dwindle your portfolio.
And so, like, honestly, this is a huge thing. I don't think I've said it as much on my channel recently, but like, no one, and I mean no one, will respect your money more than you. Yeah, it's just like it doesn't happen, right? And so I know you frequently refer to like each of those dollars as being like employees or soldiers, right? Yeah. And again, like, without directions,
that's your army, right? Yeah. You've got to make it work for you.
And without directions, without a general, like, they're just going to stand around doing nothing, right? And it makes it really easy for other people to snipe them off and pick away at them. So you need to have direction, and you need to be in control, and you need to know what's going on in your life.
Yeah, I mean, I love that analogy, and like the general thing is so key. Why would you hire someone else to be a general in your own army?
Right.
I mean, if you don't care enough to want to manage your army, they're gonna all die off.
Right. We saw this with the Roman Republic, where, you know, you get a Julius Caesar type. He just walks in, gets control of that army, and then he can take over everything. And, you know, that's kind of a facetious example, but it's literally not that different than a lot of these money managers that do dupe their clients, right? Yeah. Whether it be a reality TV star or a professional sports star or a music star or whatever. So yeah, I think that you really do have, like, you don't have to be an expert in the minutia of option trading, but you need to know where your money is. You need to know what it's doing. Know where your money is. Do you know where your money is?
I'll do the next one.
Yeah.
He's a big believer in paying yourself first. Pay yourself first is an essential tenet of personal finance and a great way to build your savings and instill financial discipline. I definitely think that makes a lot of sense. The pay yourself first has been in a lot of good personal finance books that I've read. Go ahead, what are your thoughts?
I think if you're only going to do one of these things, paying yourself first, it's such an easy thing to start doing, and it's just so effective.
Yes.
Like, literally, if you're making $4,000 a month, but you're taking essentially $1,000 out of your checking account, say, and putting it into a savings account that you can't easily access, you're not going to spend that $1,000, right? It's literally that simple, in my opinion.
100%. Like, it just, the psychology shows that if we don't have the money in our bank account, we aren't enticed to sell it. So.
Yeah.
Or spend it, sorry.
100% agree. So then number 10, we got, although it's possible to get rich if you spend your life making a living doing something you don't enjoy, he wonders why you do. Life is too short. So actually, this is kind of interesting. So this is kind of one of those things that, let me read through that one more time. Although it's possible to get rich if you spend your life making a living doing something you don't enjoy, he wonders why you do it.
It's basically doing what you love, right? At the end of the day is the biggest thing. And, you know, the research suggests that people who do what they love, they tend to do really well financially. They build the best companies.
Yes, absolutely. As far as though, like, on your path towards becoming a millionaire or financially independent, I think an argument can be made for just brute forcing it. Like, I think there was both times when we had reached a point in our careers where we were not enjoying it. Maybe we did at the start. I won't speculate for you. I know
I did not enjoy it even from day one.
The first 3 to 6 months of any job is my favorite time. It's a time of extreme growth and learning, and so that's very satisfying.
I call that the honeymoon phase.
Right? And I'll just throw myself into it and nonstop. But like, you fast forward 2 years, and unless I'm under the best management team in the world, I'm not going to like that job. Simply because, like, I don't have control, I'm not learning and growing. And so, that being said, I don't think, you know, like, if you're a high-paid corporate lawyer right now and you already have the sunk cost of having that education, I think if you don't hate your job, spend another 2 years grinding to make that 6 figures and then becoming financially independent doing what you love. I don't think there's anything wrong with even essentially that delayed gratification of grinding for a short period of time. As long as it's a very short period of time, and again, you're doing it consciously.
Yes, and I'm gonna like go as far as like calling out guys like the followers of Gary Vee and Gary Vee's big on like do what you love and your 20s don't matter. I actually hate that advice. Like
I both love it and hate it. Like,
yeah, me too. So like, okay, so one side of me is like, yes, you know, do what you love. I get that. Like eventually that should be the goal. But you know what? Like to like take the language that Gary would use, right? Like life fucking sucks sometimes, and you have to fucking grind for 5 years, right? So that just is what it is. I mean, to reach financial independence, to be a millionaire, you have to go through a period of proving yourself. For someone to want to invest in you, for someone to want, whether you're proving yourself at a small company and you're grinding hard hours for equity, or whether you're working at a soulless, you know, management, corporate type of finance job, whatever you're doing, and it's soul crushing, you have to do that for some time to build up the seed money, to start that snowball rolling. I talked earlier about pushing that snowball down the hill. This is the part where you have to push it up the hill before it starts rolling on its own. So that's just what it is.
And actually kind of building upon that, I too kind of want to dive into that Gary Vee advice, because I so agree and disagree at the same time. And I think it just depends on what your long-term plans are, right? Like if no matter what, you are going to be a musician or you're going to be this person or that person, then like time is on your side in ways, and so there's nothing wrong with wasting your 20s a bit, as long as you're wasting them intelligently, right? Like what Gary's talking about isn't like getting high and playing video games all day. What he's talking about is like, no, spending 18 hours a day on your YouTube channel for 3 years straight just to see what the fuck you can make happen. And that to me resonates very strongly. But at the same time, I don't think there's anything wrong with grinding for 3 years, getting to like the leanest of fires, and then doing the YouTube grind forever, because you can literally then do it forever now, rather than being like, oh, I can afford to waste 3 or 5 or 10 years in my 20s. you can now technically afford, once you hit lean FIRE, you can afford to waste the rest of your life if you so choose. So.
I would say, and I think it's your word that you've made, the FIREpreneur.
Yes, FIREpreneur.
You've heard it here. This is Matt's baby. It's his word.
It is, yeah. But yeah, that to me is, that's the best solution, I think, right?
You gotta suffer a little bit. You gotta go like this with those twigs and that finger until the fire starts. Once the fire started, even if it's a small fire, then you do that entrepreneurial venture. Don't get, like, I get so many people message me on, you know, Facebook or whatever. They're saying, like, I just graduated from school and I want to just do what I love. You know, sometimes the best advice is you have to grind a little bit.
Yeah, like
sometimes it sucks, and I don't like to give that advice. It's like saying, you know, sometimes you have to save to get a down payment on the house. Yeah, you don't want to hear that advice, but sometimes that's the solution. Yeah,
and same with, like, I know so many, like, lifestyle coaches and real estate coaches that I don't think have got enough life experience or real estate experience to be doing it, right? And they know that what they want to do is they want to be that guru, that coach, and so they immediately rush into it. But, like, I think far too many of them are skipping over the grind phase. Like, I literally, I can think of one person off the top of my head, and it's not the person you're thinking of even.
Oh, really?
It's a different person. And so he's becoming a lifestyle guru, but he literally graduated university and then became a guru. And it's like,
I can think of someone like that too.
I don't know if I agree with that perspective and that approach, because I think you need to taste more from life before you can really start helping others. Like, don't get me wrong, I think self-help and reading and self-reflection is huge and extremely important. And you guys are more luckier than any other generation that came before you, simply because you have the internet. The democratization of information has never been so powerful. Like, this is like the printing press on all the steroids, right? Yes. And so, that being said, just taste from a bunch of stuff before you start becoming a life guru, I think.
Dude, you're spouting gold right now. Like, I just want to, like, create a few videos out of this right here.
I'm enjoying this. Is a good, I've been reading a lot, so do you want to take number 11?
Sure, yeah. He knows that failing to plan is the same as planning to fail. Oh, you knew I love this quote. He also knows that the few millionaires that reached that milestone without a plan got there only because of dumb luck. It's not enough to simply declare that you want to be financially free. I say this quote all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I've been quoted saying this probably, like, I've said this like 10 times. You need to have a plan. If you're not planning, you're planning to fail.
Yeah.
That's true, 100%. The mindset is important, right? But at the same time, you gotta take action. I think that's what this is saying, right? That if you aren't taking action and you know, every day making an active step towards that goal, you're never going to hit that goal, in my opinion.
And let's build upon the idea of planning. So, like, it's not even just enough to plan. You need to, like, plan intelligently, right? And I think the best way to plan intelligently is to reverse engineer. Figure out exactly where you want to be, and then the steps that are going to be necessary to execute on it. Because, you know, like, making a plan, like, I'm going to buy 12 properties this year if I've never bought a property. Is that really a real plan? Or is that just, again, like, one of those things where you're like The Secret and you're like, no, if I just put it out into the world will give it back to me.
Universe, bring me properties.
Right?
I mean, maybe that works a little bit, but
yeah,
no, you gotta create objective goals.
And so I think reverse engineering is the best approach towards that. So, number 12, when it came time to set up his savings goal, he wasn't afraid to think big. Financial success demands that you have a vision that is significantly larger than you can currently deliver upon. So I think that this is kind of part of that, like, building steps, right? And reverse engineering over multiple years. So rather than simply being like, don't just set a 6-month savings goal, right? Set a 6-month, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10-year plan, right? Again, you're rarely going to regret planning, I think. So
one big thing that I found, sort of a dark side of, you know, being someone who's hit a lot of, like, I set some goals at the outset of, you know, back in 2012, I set some goals and I flew past those goals by, say, 2017. And I was at a point in the fall there, and part of why I sold was that I didn't have those big goals. I didn't know what I wanted to do next. I reached financial independence, and that was like that was everything. That was, well, you know, I didn't have that super long-term goal.
And same with, I didn't really either when I hit financial independence, and that's what sparked some of my most popular YouTube videos, which is talking about the dark side of financial independence, right? Videos. So we should actually, like, sometime have a separate video, just you and me, and, like, we'll just get really emo with it, let our feelings out, and we'll just get really dark.
Off the hair down, like some dark eye makeup.
And we can really discuss how shitty it is being so lucky. But anyways.
Now it feels bad, right, to say that.
So if you want to dive into number 13.
Over time, he found out that hard work can help make up for a lot of financial mistakes. And you will make financial mistakes. So 2 points there, you know, hard work and you're going to make mistakes, right? Those are true.
Yeah. And it's true, like the harder I work, the luckier I get, right? That's a huge thing. And you can brute force a lot of life. It's not necessarily the best approach, but like if you're in a moment where you're just like, man, things aren't going the way I wanted to, you can probably just through sheer effort change that.
If you just keep grinding,
yeah,
I mean, eventually you're going to break through the wall. Doesn't matter what wall you put in front of you, you're going to smash through it.
Yeah, so, yeah, and I agree. Everyone makes financial mistakes. The key is that you learn from it and you don't repeat them, right?
There's this saying that I used to always hear in Ivy, and I always said it, fail fast forward, right?
Yes.
You've probably heard 100%. That before. You know, when you start to realize that you've, you know, let's say, I was talking about that property in one of my other videos that I bought. It was a bad buy. I made a mistake. I bought the wrong property, but I'm failing fast forward. What's the best way at this point that I can recover from this situation, right? Realizing that I failed, acknowledge that, learn from it, don't make that mistake again. Yeah. And then just, you know what I mean, like come up with a resolution, and that's the key, right? Is
and we've discussed it before a bit, but you know, versus paying $25,000, $30,000, $60,000 for, say, a real estate coach or guru, I don't think that there's anything wrong with learning from the school of hard knocks either. Like, I don't want you reinventing the wheel because that's a waste of time, but nothing teaches like hands-on experience.
Yeah. So. In fact, like I think if you were going to do this and you were new, like you hadn't done a whole lot of flipping and stuff like that, maybe getting one of those over the phone type coaches could be a bad financial choice, a bad business choice. There are coaches out there that will come to you and flip with you on site. They'll take you at the store, they'll show you the vision. Yeah. That's the kind of coach I think that you can get. Maybe it's through a joint venture partnership with someone in your network.
I think joint ventures are some of the easiest ways to get free coaching, right? Like you find someone that's successful but not insanely successful, where they still need money partners. You be the money partner on the first deal, and then you just absorb everything you can. And I know I got money partners right now that are doing it, and there's a good chance in a year or two they're not going to need me, and that's okay. Because like I say, there is more than enough money out there for all of us. So like, I don't need to sweat that like they're going to start eating my lunch. It's like, no, if anything, this is going to force me to step it up a notch again, right? And like, again, I like that challenge. I like that growth. So
it's great when someone asks you like, why are you doing it this way? If you don't have a good answer, I mean, shit, maybe you need to change your strategy.
Exactly. So let's get into number 14. He realizes that stuff happens. That's why you're a fool if you don't insure yourself against risk. Remember that your potential for bankruptcy is always just around the corner and can be triggered from multiple sources. The death of the family's key breadwinner, divorce, or disability that leads to a loss of work. This feels a little dark to me. I don't.
It's an insurance.
Yeah. So like, definitely having the right insurance is important. Far too many people just think having insurance is important, and I disagree. I know lots of people that either are sales reps for insurance or have been, in my opinion, hoodwinked by sales reps for insurance, where they end up with far more insurance than they need, and it doesn't even align with their goals or their needs or what direction they're going in. So like, I know like so many people talk to me about like, oh, like, do you have like it's not the right word, but like death insurance or whatever, where like when you die you get money,
life insurance, critical illness insurance, disability insurance.
And like they bring up all these things, I'm like, man, if I die, whoever's getting my estate just won the lottery, right? Like it's not like it's not that all of a sudden they're burdened with the cost of my funeral. Number one, I want to be burned. Don't waste any money on my funeral. Maybe like a free open bar, but other than that, I don't need anything going on at the funeral. And otherwise, like they're going to end up financially ahead. And at any point in time, I even have enough. I know sometimes they'll be like, oh, but all your money's tied up in this, that, and the other, so they can't immediately access that from your estate, that blah, blah. Nah, they'll be fine. You know, like there's liquid cash, there's physical cash if they really need to get a hold of it. Like, and so from my perspective, that need for insurance isn't important. However, travel insurance is important because I foresee myself traveling around the world potentially in the future. So I think,
traveler.
Why not, right? Yeah, and then also umbrella insurance as a real estate investor is very important to me. So having that $1 or $2 million umbrella policy just as my sleep at night factor, when I look at it, it's such a marginal cost that I feel very comfortable with it. So
I'm gonna make one quick, that's something we have to talk about after.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so just so I don't forget, but on this point here, I just recently took my LLQP exams, which is like a life insurance qualification program. So I'm not licensed anymore, actually, technically. So whatever I'm saying is just my opinion. I took the 4 tests for the LLQP, right, which essentially talks about like accident and death insurance, critical illness insurance, life insurance, which is like death insurance. I think having been through that from the lens of, I'm financially independent already, and I do a lot of self-insuring.
Same.
I come at it from a different perspective than maybe most of the people in the class, and I was that guy in the class that was the devil's advocate. So I did a lot of poking, and here's what I'll say on that. Like, it's situational. It depends on the person.
Yes,
if you 100%. Have 2 kids and you're just starting your real estate career, and you dying tomorrow would ruin that, that's something that's important.
100%. And I think you need more insurance when you're at that stage than you do once you've built up your assets. Like, I know a lot of people will be fear-oriented and be like, no, I can't afford to lose all that shit. And it's like, no, dude, like, you lose all that shit, it's not a big deal. You can build it again. But, like, when you're in that point where you're like, ooh, like, I'm maxing out my line of credit for this next BRRRR, and, like, also, like, I'm maybe not as focused at my work, so there's a chance I could lose my job. Like, those situations, totally get.
You gotta, at the end of the day, there's risk in everything you do, right? And the more risk that you take, the more, there's only a few ways to handle risk, right? You can accept that risk, and which is what you're doing. You're accepting the risk. You can transfer that risk, which is basically insuring for that risk. If there's no way for you to accept it, right? If there's if the ultimatum is like, my wife is gonna have to go back to work and my daughter's gonna starve, then obviously you can't accept that risk. You'd have to transfer it. But there are strategies you can use. Just be very careful with some of the illustrations. There are good products out there that do exist where you could have that insurance component and build cash value from a investment perspective, and in a way that by putting that money towards that insurance product in the beginning, you end up at the same point. So you don't, all that money you've thrown away, you haven't lost. It's not just like a term insurance product. There's a product that builds cash value and you can invest tax-free. So there are ways. Actually, if you look at Tony Robbins' book, he guts like all of the fee issues related to like mutual funds, and one of his...
Oh, he's got a book on that?
Yeah, Tony Robbins has like a money book.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of him as guru.
The book's eluding me right now, but basically he goes into one of his chapters, I think it's like chapter 9, talks about high net worth individuals. And what do the affluent and the rich do? And the rich actually use insurance. And they don't, and he goes into it, they don't use insurance because they're worried about their kids, right? Like their kids. Like I'm talking like Ted Rogers kind of people. They're using these policies for tax efficient investing.
Yes, and that's being driven by a whole different reason than
they want to leave a legacy, they want to avoid tax. So there are ways. My point was just that high net worth individuals do use insurance, and it can be a fantastic product, assuming you have a few things, like your health is pretty good, so your premiums are decent, a number of other factors, right? Depends on your tax rate, things like that. Sure. Talk to your accountant before you buy anything like that. Talk to your financial planner before you buy anything like that. But I'm just saying, the point is you could have that risk covered, right? And so that'll ensure that you hit your plan with more certainty, right? You don't, your plan doesn't come off the rails. At the same time, end up further ahead than you would have having invested that money in something else, like a publicly traded company or something. You can get a better return potentially and have that risk protection. So something to think about when you're building a financial plan. Check out Tony Robbins. The name's eluding me. It's his money book on one of the chapters.
I'm sure if you
high net worth
type in Tony Robbins money,
do essentially. It's a pretty cool book and something that I need to get on now that I'm starting to become more affluent, and it's likely long term that I'll have a high tax consequence as a result of the business activities I'm involved in. So it could make some sense to look into that, even if you can self-insure. Like I could self-insure, and you still have to ask yourself questions like, if I got cancer and my daughter got cancer tomorrow, would I burn through all of that wealth and leave my wife with nothing? No, and potentially, maybe
in
not.
Canada, you would.
No, probably not. But I don't know. Let's just say it's possible, right? Let's say there's $1 million treatment in the U.S. that isn't covered, and it could save her life. And
those are kind of the rare exceptions.
I would choose that, right? Than die.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into number 15. So he understands that time is an ally of the young. He was fortunate enough to begin saving in his 20s so he could take maximum advantage of the power of compounding growth on his nest egg. And so that's where growing that gap when you're young is important, so that your money soldiers can be working beside you while you're still grinding.
What is it like? There's some fact. It's like $1. If you spend $1 now, it's worth 12 when you're near death or something. Something like that. Some really high number, 10, 12, 15, whatever it is. The point is that if you spend it at $10 now, it's costing you hundreds later on. You think, a lot of people have this mentality. It's like, oh, I can just earn that when I'm 50. I can just earn back, like that's when I'll make all my money is when I'm 50. And that's what most people plan on.
Yeah, it's crazy to me how many people live and then don't start planning until their 50s.
And they're like, oh, I'm going to make all this money when I'm 50. It's fine. But you know what? Like, you have to earn a lot of money when you're 50 to make up for all that compound loss.
Absolutely.
Right? So, yeah.
Do you want to do number 16?
Yeah, definitely. He knows that you can't spend what you don't see. You should use automatic paycheck deductions to build up your retirement and other savings accounts. As your salary increases, you can painlessly increase the size of those deductions. To me, okay, so that looks like it's hitting up the other point, which is pay yourself first.
Yeah, very similar.
A bit of a recap there. The nuance that's added here is increasing those deductions towards savings as your income increases, instead of letting lifestyle inflation eat away at those new increases in your salary. Yeah. So some good points here.
Yeah, and I really like it. Just to use a personal example, what I did when I had my first mortgage on my principal residence, I did weekly payments, and I would increase them by like $20 a week every couple months. And like the thing was, it was such small increments I didn't notice. But it didn't take very long until I was doing double weekly payments, and I was already on an accelerated payment plan. So essentially, and I'm not saying that this was the best financial advice, but at the time I wasn't as focused on building a massive real estate portfolio. I was more just focused about paying down my debt. And we can get into a whole nother video.
It might be good debt, but he's still saving.
Yeah, but so essentially what it did was it compressed what traditionally most people would have a 20-25 year amortization period. It compressed it into like a 9.5 year period, just based on like how fast I was able to keep increasing those payments.
You refinanced.
Oh yeah, no, I have a huge line, a huge HELOC on it now.
Otherwise, I'd have to plug my ears.
Yeah, no, I now like I'm probably almost still 80%
good
loan to value on it, but there was a time when I was well below 50% loan to value on it, just because it was my personal preference at the time, but I definitely understand the different perspectives on it. So number 17, even though he has a job that he loves, he doesn't have to work anymore because everything he owns is paid for and has been for years. This kind of feels self-evident, yeah.
Like, it feels like we've talked about this before too, right? The previous points.
Yeah. I think the only thing I'm going to build upon this in a different direction is lots of people say as an argument for why they don't want to save money, why they don't want to reach financial independence, is, I love my job, I'd never quit. And the thing is, one, I barely believe you. Number two is your job can quit you. It's not just a one-way street where you're always in charge, right? Yeah. Like your company can be downsized, your department's budget can be slashed. You can just have a bad month, a bad year, a bad whatever, depending on what industry or job position you're in. And so I think it's very naive to take the presence or the position that I love my job, no worries.
And that's never going to change.
Right.
I'm never going to change. I'm never going to evolve.
Like I said, the first 3 to 6 months of any job, I fucking love that job. And then after it, I usually start to really dislike it.
The honeymoon phase ends and sets in. Hopefully you sign a prenup.
Yeah, so 18.
He's not impressed that you drive an overpriced luxury car and live in a McMansion that's 2 sizes too big for your family of 4. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a little impressed when someone drives up in a nice car, but then like, it's only if they're like super well off, and then it's like, okay, you can afford it based on the percentage of your net worth. But when someone drives up and they're like, oh, I work at like, I'm an accountant at like, sorry, I won't.
No, that's fine.
I'm just an average person, right?
Yeah.
I didn't mean to say accountants are average. Accountants are great. Like Ned, if you're watching, you're awesome.
Auditors, don't come at me.
No, please no.
But yeah, no, I definitely understand what you're saying. But it is funny to me that like every single person that works for me as like a contractor, whatever, they all drive better vehicles than I do, right? Like, and so I think there's something very telling there. It's the concept of big hat, no cattle, right? Is a common phrase in like Alberta and stuff. And so the concept there is you're all sizzle, no steak, all flash, nothing in the pan. And yeah, I agree that there's certain situations where I think that, again though, like an overpriced luxury car, I think my buddy or our buddy Graham Steffen's a great example of it, where he's very strategic with how he gets that luxury vehicle, and essentially costs him the same that like my shitty car cost me, simply because he's using it strategically, one, and kind of almost for advertising, right? It's to build his personal brand, both as a realtor as well as a YouTuber. In addition, he's buying used, he knows cars inside and out, and he's almost more treating them like a collectible or a fine piece of art versus some vehicle that he's street racing, right?
Yes.
And so I think that that's the big difference there. He's barely ever driving his Lotus, right? Like, I'd be interested, I'm not sure if he's ever talked about it on his videos, but like, he's probably like maybe a couple thousand miles a year, right? Like, it's probably to the point where he sometimes has to drive it for the sake of the car rather than driving it because he wants to.
Yeah, just to keep it running, keep everything oil and lube.
So I think that that's just kind of an important point there.
Definitely, and I think it says like the person's not impressed. I mean, I'd be impressed if it was like, you know, Warren Buffett had a house that was like, you know, 2 times the size he needs, because like, as a percentage of his wealth, he could buy anything and it's around here. Like a billionaire, right?
And like, that's a big point. At the same time, like, you know, in my heart of hearts, I see no reason to be inefficient simply for the sake of inefficiency, right?
Yes.
And I know you're
I might,
the same.
you know, if I ever become a decamillionaire.
Yeah.
You know, like.
What would that inefficiency look like? Is it a McMansion?
It might be a little bigger house.
Do you hire a cleaner, or are you just cleaning it all the time?
I'm hiring a cleaner, of course. So this lifestyle inflation creeps out. But as a percentage of my income coming in, I'm still going to be at like that 90% savings rate.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, so maybe if you want to let your lifestyle inflate, if you get your income way up, then as long as you're spending like 10 or 20% of your earning, it's not that bad, I guess.
I definitely understand that perspective.
That's more like the growth mindset.
So last but not least, 19. After 6 months of asking, he finally quit waiting for you to return his pruning shears. He broke down and bought himself a new pair last month. There's no hard feelings though, he can afford it. And so I think that taking this on the big picture, I think this is more like not sweating the small stuff. So, and I agree, like, to me, that's where some of the value of financial independence, being retired early, comes from, is that, say, when we hold our London on Fire meetups and someone forgets to pay their tab, it's never done from like a spiteful point of view, right? Like, it's simply someone forgot. And so it's a lot nicer to just like, for me, go and pay that $20 tab and not worry about it, rather than stress and be like, oh, like one of these fuckers didn't pay for their tab and like they're trying to get a free ride on me. And it's like, I think for me, it comes down to, very rarely did someone wake up this morning deciding that they want to screw you over the individual, right? Like, some of my tenants may wake up deciding to screw their landlord over, but it's never directed at Matt McKeever the person. It's directed at this thing that's a landlord. And so I think not taking things personal is important, and that's kind of what's great about having this flexibility where I don't have to sweat the small things.
It's nice. I mean, there's that whole thing, right? In the beginning of the wealth accumulation phase, there's like wealth accumulation and wealth like distribution. Like, what do you do with your wealth after, legacy, whatever. In that beginning stages of the hyperbolic kind of like curve that ends up happening if you create the snowballs, I still believe that like sweating the small stuff in the beginning makes so much sense. Like, people say, oh, it doesn't matter, like I got a $30 speeding ticket or a $30 parking ticket or something. You know what, if you're just starting out on your journey, that's a huge impact. But later on in your life, when you've got that $1 million, you're already on that bandwagon of like, you're on the ride down now instead of the ride up. Then of course, don't sweat the small stuff. You gotta let things go. I've been letting things go. I went to Eastside Mario's last night without a coupon. So that's saying something.
That's a poor example of letting things go, but...
No, normally that would bug me. Like, the fact that I've been eating out more than I should. That's a bad example. I don't know why I even use that one.
No, I understand what you're saying, though. And part of it comes back to point 18, where we're talking about some lifestyle inflation. If it's still such an insignificant portion of your total income, we certainly can understand how people rationalize that further than when it's everything, right? And so, again, when you're doing your very first flip or your very first BRRRR, making sure that you succeed on that deal is way more important than making sure number 12 goes well, right?
Yes.
And so that's where like saving that extra $1 per square foot on flooring can be massive on your first flip.
Yes.
Whereas by the time you're on flip number 50, you know, if you're still sweating over that $1, I would argue that either you're doing it wrong, your margins are too narrow, or whatever's going on there. So Yeah, I agree that at the start it's way more important to be focused. And I think that's why so many of us originally, when we joined the idea of financial independence, being retired early, we micromanage our spending a lot at the start, right? Like any new true believer, micromanages like crazy. But they eventually learn that like, oh, this is more of a habit now. So like this one-off purchase of that expensive yogurt or that coffee or whatever it is, or eating out, it's not a habit that I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. So I'm not going to, like, it's not something that's ingrained in me that I have to worry about anymore.
It becomes a habitude that I use.
Exactly.
When a habit and then your psychological mind shifts 100%. As an attitude. When your habits, you've been doing something for a long time, and then your mind has shifted to a new way of thinking. When those come together, you get some habitudes of the wealthy. You don't need to be managing day to day. You're going to be on the right track.
Yeah. So I think that's probably a good point. Is any to wrap this up? It feels like we've been talking about this forever, so we'll let you guys
maybe
go.
Should be 2 videos.
Yeah, maybe we'll cut it into 2. We'll see. But if you guys did enjoy this video, smash that like button. If you're new to my channel, hit the subscribe button. Michael someday will have a YouTube channel, so I'll link to it in the video description down below if he's created it by the time we do it. By the time we release this video, hopefully he will. But otherwise, really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video. And until next time, remember, making money is a team sport. There's more than enough money out there for us to all make it. But if you're not saving it, I mean, like, what's the point? Thanks, guys. Bye.
See you guys. That was a good video.
Yeah, I like.
Lots of energy.
It's going to be long and weird, but I think there's tons of interesting.
We could do